I am not an Omega, I whispered, even as the emergency lights painted the elevator red and two of the most powerful alphas in Manhattan stared at me like the floor had just disappeared beneath all three of us. My name is Noah Bennett, and 6 hours earlier, my biggest problem had been a coffee stain shaped like Florida on my only good shirt. I had arrived at Reed Dynamics at 7:42 a.m., 18 minutes early and somehow already feeling late. The lobby rose around me in glass, marble, and the quiet confidence of a company that charged more for one consultation than I made in a year. I tightened my grip on the folder under my arm and reminded myself that I belonged there. Technically, temporarily, probably. I had been hired as a junior brand analyst, which sounded impressive until you realized it mostly meant correcting presentation slides, while senior executives used words like synergy without irony. Still, the job came with health insurance, a decent paycheck, and a view of the city from the 42nd floor. For a 24-year-old beta with student loans and a landlord who treated rent reminders like personal threats, that was practically luxury. I reached the security desk, offered my badge, and tried not to look nervous. The guard scanned it twice. "Executive research access?" he asked. "Apparently," I said. "I am as surprised as you are." He handed it back without smiling. "Tough room." Upstairs, my manager rushed toward me before I had even placed my bag beneath my desk. She carried a silver case and the expression of someone transporting state secrets. "Noah, take this to legal on 52, she said. "Do not open it, do not lose it, and do not hand it to anyone except Miranda Cole." I looked at the case, then at her. Should I also avoid mysterious men in trench coats? Just use the private elevator. That was how I ended up alone inside a mirrored steel box, holding a locked case against my chest while the doors began to close. A polished black shoe stopped them. Mason Reed stepped inside first. He was tall, dark-haired, and perfectly composed, with the kind of expression that made entire conference rooms sit straighter. His twin, Miles, followed, with a warmer smile and a paper cup of coffee balanced in one hand. Same sharp features, same blue eyes, completely different weather. Mason was winter behind glass. Miles was sunlight pretending not to notice the storm. "New hire," Miles said, glancing at my badge. "Noah Bennett." "That is what the badge claims," I replied. His smile widened. Mason looked at the silver case, then at me. "Why are you carrying restricted material?" "Because someone with better judgment than me made a questionable decision." Miles laughed. Mason did not. The elevator rose. 44, 45, 46. A strange warmth moved beneath my skin. I shifted my collar and told myself the building was overheated. Then the case slipped in my damp hands. A small orange pill rolled from my pocket and struck the floor. Mason looked down. His expression changed. "Where did you get that?" Before I could answer, the elevator dropped half a foot, the lights vanished, and Miles caught my arm as darkness swallowed us whole. The elevator stopped so completely that even the hum beneath my shoes disappeared. For one breath, nobody moved. Then the emergency lights blinked on, flooding the mirrored walls with a dim red glow that made all three of us look like suspects in a very expensive crime. Miles still had one hand around my arm. His grip was steady, careful, and immediately gone the second he realized I was balanced again. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Only emotionally," I said, because apparently my survival instinct came with jokes. Mason ignored that and crouched beside the orange pill. He did not touch it. His gaze sharpened instead. "Answer the question. Where did you get this?" "My doctor." That was mostly true. The prescription had come from the clinic I had used since high school, though the bottle had been refilled through Reed Dynamics Employee Health Services that morning. Mason looked at the pill as if it had personally offended him. "That is not a standard beta stabilizer." A wave of heat rolled through me before I could respond. It started at the base of my neck and spread downward, not painful, but wrong, like my body had forgotten its own operating instructions. I loosened my tie. The air suddenly felt too thin. Miles noticed first. "Noah, the ventilation stopped," I said. "That is all." My voice sounded distant, even to me. Mason stood and pressed the emergency call button. Nothing happened. He tried again, then opened a panel beneath the controls. "The backup line is dead." "That seems illegal," I murmured. My hands were trembling now, so I tucked them under my arms and pretended they belonged to someone else. Miles lowered himself a few feet away, keeping his movements slow. "Look at me." I would rather look at the floor. The floor is not talking you through this. The floor is less intimidating. His expression softened. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Out for 6. I tried. The first breath caught halfway. The second made my chest tighten. Then something changed in the elevator. A scent I did not recognize filled the small space. Light at first, almost like citrus warmed by sunlight. Miles froze. Mason turned toward me so quickly that I forgot how to breathe altogether. What? I asked. Neither answered. The scent deepened, mixing with something like cedar and cold rain from Mason, then amber and coffee from Miles. Their alpha scents had always been professionally muted. Now I could distinguish each one as clearly as voices. That should not have been possible. Mason removed his suit jacket and draped it over the security camera. Do not come any closer to him, he told Miles. I am not, Miles said. He is panicking. His scent is changing. My stomach dropped. My what? Mason faced me, controlled but no longer cold. Noah, have you ever experienced a heat cycle? I laughed once, sharp and breathless. No, I am a beta. Another pulse of warmth moved through me, stronger this time. The mirrored walls seemed to tilt inward. Miles kept his eyes on mine. Your medical records might be wrong. Medical records do not make mistakes for 15 years. Mason looked down at the orange pill again. Sometimes they do not make mistakes. Silence settled over us. Then Miles asked, very quietly, what are you saying? Mason lifted his gaze to mine. I am saying someone may have wanted this to happen. Miles stared at Mason as if the red emergency light had changed the shape of his brother's face. Wanted what to happen? He asked. Mason did not answer immediately. He removed a clean handkerchief from his pocket, used it to lift the orange pill, and folded the fabric around it without touching the surface. Even trapped in a dead elevator with an employee whose body had apparently declared independence, he moved with the calm precision of a man reviewing quarterly reports. I hated how reassuring that was. Noah, he said, when did you receive this medication? This morning. The employee clinic refilled my prescription. Was the bottle sealed? I tried to remember. The nurse had been distracted. Someone had called her into the hallway. The bottle had been sitting beside my paperwork when she returned. I think so. Mason's jaw tightened. That means no. Another wave of heat moved through me, stronger than the last. My knees softened, and I reached for the wall. Miles shifted forward, then stopped himself before crossing the space between us. May I help you sit down? The question surprised me more than it should have. He was asking permission while every alpha instinct in the elevator must have been shouting at him to take control. I nodded. Miles approached slowly, supporting my elbow until I was seated against the mirrored wall. Then he backed away again. Better. No, I admitted. But now I am failing at adulthood closer to the floor. A quiet laugh escaped him, brief but warm. Mason glanced toward the ceiling vent. The air circulation was disabled before the elevator stopped. You can tell that by looking at it? I asked. I can tell because the emergency system should have restarted within 30 seconds. He checked his watch. It has been nearly 4 minutes. For minutes. It felt like 40. The scents around me grew clearer with every breath. Mason smelled like cedar after rain, cool and steady. Miles carried amber, roasted coffee, and something bright that reminded me of orange peel. Somehow, recognizing them made the pressure in my chest ease. That frightened me almost as much as the heat. Do not focus on our scents, Mason said. I am not trying to. Your body. Maybe. My body has made several unauthorized decisions today. Miles lowered himself across from me, leaving more than an arm's length between us. Then give it something else to follow. Match my breathing. He inhaled slowly. I copied him. In for 4. Hold for 2. Out for 6. The rhythm helped, but only until the elevator gave a faint metallic groan and the lights flickered. My hand reached out before my mind could stop it. Miles caught it. The instant our palms touched, warmth rushed through me, not sharper, but calmer, as if a storm had found a shoreline. Miles went still. Mason's eyes narrowed. Let go, he said, but his voice sounded strained now. I pulled my hand back immediately. The calm vanished so fast that I nearly gasped. What was that? Miles asked. Mason moved closer, though he still kept a careful distance. Scent resonance. With 1 alpha? Miles asked. Mason looked at me, then at his brother. No, the air shifted again. Cedar, amber, and my unfamiliar scent folded together until I could no longer tell where one ended and another began. A strange awareness brushed the edge of my thoughts. Miles was worried, Mason was afraid, and neither feeling belonged to me. I pressed both hands against my temples. I can feel you. Mason's control finally cracked, not loudly, but in the smallest widening of his eyes. Then the emergency speaker clicked on, and a distorted voice whispered through the static. The package should have worked by now. For one terrible second, nobody breathed. The voice vanished into static, leaving only the soft click of the speaker and the sound of my pulse racing in my ears. Mason stepped beneath the control panel and pressed the call button again. "Identify yourself," he said. Silence answered. Miles looked at the silver case beside me. "The package," he said quietly. "They mean the case." I pulled it closer without thinking. I was told not to open it. "That instruction may have come from the person who trapped us," Mason replied. He crouched several feet away, careful not to crowd me. "Noah, I need your permission to inspect it." The fact that he asked, even now, loosened something tight inside my chest. I nodded. Mason opened the outer latch with his handkerchief. Inside were printed research files, a sealed flash drive, and a small prescription bottle with my name on it. My stomach turned cold despite the heat under my skin. "That is not mine," I said. Miles leaned closer, but did not touch anything. "Same clinic label, same doctor, same dosage." Mason read the date. "Filled yesterday. My refill was processed this morning." Mason and Miles exchanged a look so quick that I almost missed it. Through the strange connection between us, I felt the meaning before either spoke. This was planned. My breathing lost its rhythm again. Miles noticed immediately. "Stay with me, Noah. I am trapped in an elevator. I have very few alternatives." His mouth curved, but worry remained in his eyes. "Good. Keep talking." A faint shudder moved through the floor. I reached for the wall, and the red lights dimmed. Mason took off his tie and wedged it around the edge of the ceiling vent, testing the panel. "The ventilation unit is locked from outside," he said. "Can you restart it?" Miles asked. "Not from here." The warmth inside me pressed harder, turning every scent sharper. Cedar, amber, coffee, rain. My body leaned toward them before I caught myself. Shame rushed through me. Mason saw it. "This is not your fault. You do not know what I am thinking." His gaze held mine. "I can feel enough." That should have frightened me. Instead, his voice steadied the room. Miles shifted closer by only a few inches. "We can help regulate your breathing and temperature, but you decide how close we come." I swallowed. "Both of you. Only if you choose," Miles said. "No instincts. No assumptions." I looked from one brother to the other. Mason kept his hands visible at his sides. Miles waited with an open palm resting on the floor. They were two of the most powerful men in the city, and neither moved until I whispered, "Come closer." Mason sat on my left. Miles sat on my right. Neither touched me. Their scents settled around me like two different kinds of shelter. I closed my eyes and followed Miles as he counted each breath. Mason spoke through the emergency panel, giving calm instructions to a security team that could not answer. Slowly, the pressure inside me eased. The strange awareness between us deepened. Miles felt hopeful. Mason felt furious, but not at me. Then a hidden mechanism clicked above the doors. Mason went still. "Someone is moving the elevator manually," he said. The floor began rising, inch by inch. Miles looked toward the dark seam between the doors. "Are they rescuing us?" Mason folded the handkerchief around the pill and placed it inside his pocket. "No," he said. "They are bringing us to them." The elevator rose for less than a minute before stopping with a soft mechanical jolt. The doors opened onto a dim service floor lined with unfinished walls, plastic sheeting, and stacked maintenance crates. No welcoming rescue team waited outside. No paramedics. No security officers. Only a narrow hallway and a blinking exit sign at the far end. Mason stood first and blocked the doorway with his body. "Stay behind me," he said. Miles helped me to my feet only after I nodded. My legs felt unreliable, as if they had been replaced with furniture parts assembled without instructions. "This is not floor 52, I said. "Very observant," Miles replied softly. "I am trying to keep my professional value visible." Mason checked the hallway, then took out his phone. A single bar of service appeared. He called security and gave our location in a voice so calm that the impossible situation almost sounded routine. Then he looked back at the silver case. Leave it. That case is the reason someone trapped us, I said. It may also be evidence. It may contain another device. That ended the debate. We moved into the hallway, Mason several steps ahead and Miles beside me without touching. The strange connection between us remained, faint but impossible to ignore. I could feel Mason measuring every doorway. I could feel Miles watching my breathing. I hated that their concern felt warmer than it should have. We reached a fire door just as footsteps approached from the other side. Mason tensed. The door opened, revealing 3 company security officers and Dr. Evelyn Hart from the employee clinic. Relief crossed Miles's face. Suspicion crossed. Mason's. Dr. Hart hurried toward me with a medical bag. Noah, I need to examine you. I stepped back. Her eyes dropped to the orange pill in Mason's handkerchief. For 1 second, her expression changed. Not surprise. Recognition. Mason saw it too. Where is Grant Holloway? He asked. I do not know, she said too quickly. Security escorted us to the private medical suite on the 49th floor. The room was quiet, cool, and far too white. Dr. Hart checked my temperature, pulse, and sent response while Mason stood near the door and Miles remained where I could see him. His condition is stabilizing, she said. He needs rest and limited exposure to alpha sense. Then we should leave, Miles said. Something inside me tightened at the thought, which was humiliating in at least 6 different ways. Dr. Hart avoided my eyes. Not yet. The resonance is unusually strong. Mason turned toward the legal advisor who had just entered the room. Noah is not to leave this building. The words landed harder than they should have. I looked at him. Excuse me. Mason kept speaking to the advisor. Lock down the clinic records. Freeze all access logs. Nobody contacts the press. You are holding me here? I asked. He finally faced me. Until we understand what happened. That is not your decision. Someone altered your medication. And now you are controlling where I go. Miles stepped between us, his voice careful. Noah, that is not what he means. I heard exactly what he means. Through the bond, Mason's fear reached me, cold and urgent, but his face remained unreadable. That contradiction made everything worse. I pulled the monitoring clip from my finger and stood. I am leaving. Mason moved toward the door. Not threatening. Not forceful. Just there. You are not safe outside. I am not safe inside either. The room went silent. Miles looked at his brother. Mason looked at me. Then the fire alarm began ringing, and every door in the medical suite unlocked at once. The fire alarm turned the medical suite into instant confusion. Red lights flashed above the doors, automated instructions echoed through the hallway, and staff members began moving toward the emergency stairs. I stepped into the crowd before Mason could stop me. Noah, he called, but Miles reached me first. He did not grab my arm. He simply moved beside me and matched my pace. The elevators are disabled, he said. We need the west stairwell. I need to get out of this building. Then I am coming with you. Behind us, Mason ordered security to secure the clinic records and find Dr. Hart, who had disappeared during the alarm. His voice remained controlled, but the bond carried something different. Fear. Sharp, cold, and focused entirely on me. I tried to ignore it. We descended 4 flights before the heat beneath my skin returned as a dull pulse. My knees weakened, and Miles stopped 1 step below me so I would not fall forward. May I? He asked, holding out his hand. I took it. The strange calm returned immediately. I hate that this helps, I admitted. I am trying not to take that personally. You are one of my employers. It is professionally inconvenient. For the record, I am also finding this inconvenient. We reached a quiet landing between floors. Miles looked back toward the door, then lowered his voice. Mason was not trying to imprison you. He said I could not leave. Mason speaks in commands when he is terrified. That seems healthy. It is deeply annoying. The stairwell door opened above us. Mason appeared, breathing harder than I had ever imagined Mason Reed could breathe. Relief moved through the bond before his expression returned to stone. Security confirmed the alarm was triggered manually, he said. Someone wanted the clinic cleared. Maybe the same person who wanted me trapped upstairs, I replied. Mason glanced at my hand in Miles's. Something complicated passed between the brothers. You should not have removed him from the medical floor, Mason said. Miles stepped closer to me. He chose to leave. He is unstable. He is standing right here. The tension between them filled the narrow landing. It was not alpha aggression. It was older than that. Familiar. Miles believed Mason saw people as problems to manage. Mason believed Miles followed his heart into danger and expected someone else to clean up. Afterward, the bond carried both truths at once. Stop, I said. They did. That surprised all three of us. I can feel what you are not saying, and it is exhausting. Mason looked away first. Miles released my hand, but stayed close. I pressed my palm against the cool railing. You are afraid this will come between you. Silence answered. Mason finally spoke. Miles and I built this company together. Every decision has always been shared. Until me, I said. Miles gave a humorless smile. Until you. For the first time, neither of them looked like untouchable chief executives. They looked like brothers standing at the edge of something neither knew how to name. My phone vibrated in my pocket. An anonymous message appeared on the screen. It contained a photograph of a medical chart dated 20 years earlier. My name was printed across the top. Beneath it were the words, Omega Suppression Trial, Subject Number 12. For several seconds, I could only stare at the screen. The photograph was slightly blurred, but the name was mine. Noah Bennett. Date of birth correct. Childhood address correct. Beneath it, a list of weekly injections stretched across years I barely remembered. This is impossible, I said. Mason took out his phone, but did not reach for mine. Forward it to me. Why? Because the image may contain location data. Miles watched my face. Noah, do you recognize the clinic name? I zoomed in. Westbridge Pediatric Research Center. The words pulled a memory loose. White walls. A jar of lollipops. My mother signing forms while a nurse told me the medicine would keep me healthy. I went there until I was 12, I whispered. They said I had a hormone disorder. Mason's expression hardened. Westbridge was purchased by Reed Biotech 22 years ago. Your company did this. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Through the bond, shock moved through both brothers, immediate and genuine. Miles shook his head. Our father controlled the research division then. Mason and I were children. Another message arrived. This one contained laboratory reports, internal memos, and a familiar signature at the bottom of every approval page. Grant Holloway. My stomach dropped. The silver case was not ordinary legal material. It contained evidence. Someone had placed it in my hands because they knew I was connected to the records. Grant knew who I was, I said. He embarrassed me in the meeting because he recognized my name. Mason studied the documents over my shoulder. He also knew you were reviewing the suppressant campaign. The missing trial data, I said. I found gaps in the safety reports. Miles looked between us. So he altered Noah's medication, trapped all three of us in the elevator, and planned to make the incident look like scent manipulation. The idea was so calculated that my thoughts briefly went blank. Then everything aligned. The disabled ventilation, the hidden prescription bottle, the speaker, the covered camera that someone expected to record us. If the footage showed an Omega employee losing control near two Alpha Chief executive officers, anything I said afterward could be dismissed as revenge or shame. He did not just want the files, I said. He wanted to ruin my credibility. Mason's voice turned quiet. And remove us from the company at the same time. My phone rang. Grant Holloway's name appeared on the screen. None of us moved. It rang again. Answer it, Mason said. Put it on speaker. I did. Grant's voice arrived warm and polished, the same voice he used in meetings when pretending not to insult people. Noah, thank goodness. We have been looking everywhere for you. I am sure you have. A pause. You sound upset. Miles stepped closer, close enough that his shoulder nearly touched mine, but he waited. Mason stood on my other side. Their presence steadied the strange heat beneath my skin. I found the Westbridge records, I said. The line went silent. Then Grant sighed. You were never supposed to see those. You gave me the case. I gave you an opportunity to remain quiet. Mason's eyes met mine. I understood. Keep him talking. And the medication? I asked. Grant's pleasant tone disappeared. That was insurance. A new alert flashed across Mason's phone. Emergency board meeting, noon. Public relations crisis. Evidence of executive misconduct. Grant had already started the next part of his plan. He spoke once more, almost kindly. By lunchtime, nobody will believe a word you say. The call ended. I looked at Mason and Miles. The fear inside me was still there, but it no longer owned the room. Then we make them listen before lunchtime. By 11:45, The boardroom on the 52nd floor was already full. 12 directors sat behind a polished walnut table, while legal counsel, public relations staff, and two very nervous assistants lined the walls. Grant Holloway stood at the far end beneath a screen displaying a frozen image from the elevator camera. The picture showed me between Mason and Miles under red emergency lights. Without context, it looked intimate, secretive, and exactly as damaging as Grant intended. Every face turned toward us when the doors opened. I nearly stopped walking. Mason stood on my left. Miles stood on my right. Neither touched me, but the bond carried the same message from both of them. You are not alone. Grant smiled as if we had arrived for a scheduled presentation. There he is, he said, the employee at the center of this unfortunate incident. My name is Noah Bennett, I replied. You have known that for 20 years. The room shifted. Grant's smile weakened. The chairwoman asked us to sit, but I remained standing. I placed my phone, the copied research files, and the altered medication bottle on the table. Mason handed legal counsel the orange pill sealed inside an evidence pouch. Miles connected the flash drive from the silver case to the presentation system. Grant stepped forward. Before this becomes a performance, the board should know that Mr. Bennett experienced an uncontrolled Omega response in a confined space with two alpha executives. Heat rose into my face, but I kept my voice steady. That is true. What you left out is that I was told I was a beta because Reed Biotech suppressed my designation during an unauthorized childhood trial. Miles changed the screen. My medical chart appeared, followed by Westbridge records and approval forms carrying Grant's signature. A murmur passed around the table. Grant looked at Mason. These files are incomplete. Then let us complete them, Mason said. He announced that he and Miles were surrendering their voting authority during the investigation. The decision stunned the room. It stunned me too. Reed Dynamics was their life, yet they were giving up control so nobody could claim they were protecting themselves. Miles uploaded the elevator access logs, the disabled ventilation report, and the recording of Grant's phone call. His own voice filled the boardroom. That was insurance. Grant's expression finally cracked. A private recording taken during a medical crisis proves nothing. The clinic records prove enough, said Dr. Hart from the doorway. Two compliance officers entered behind her. She looked pale, but determined. Mr. Holloway ordered the replacement prescription. I kept the authorization messages. Grant turned toward her. You approved it. Because you told me it was an emergency audit sample. When I recognized the pill in the elevator, I understood what you had done. The chairwoman immediately suspended Grant and ordered an independent federal review of every Westbridge file. Nobody applauded. Real life was not that tidy. There were only shocked faces, hurried calls, and years of hidden damage finally becoming visible. When the room emptied, I remained beside the table, staring at my childhood chart. You both could lose the company, I said. Mason stood across from me. A company that survives by hiding this does not deserve to survive. Miles came closer, but left enough space for me to choose. What happens next is not our decision. I looked at the two identical faces and felt two completely different kinds of hope through the bond. For the first time that day, nobody was deciding what I was. Nobody was telling me where to stand. I reached for the files and held them against my chest. Then I decided we finish this together. 3 weeks later, I returned to Reed Dynamics wearing a new badge, a better shirt, and enough nervous energy to power half of Manhattan. The badge no longer identified me as a junior analyst. It read independent ethics consultant, which sounded impressive until I remembered I had spent 10 minutes that morning arguing with my toaster. The investigation had expanded beyond Grant Holloway. Federal reviewers had reopened every Westbridge file. Families had begun receiving answers, and Dr. Hart was cooperating fully. Mason and Miles had not regained their voting authority, but neither seemed eager to rush the process. They had spent the past weeks meeting with former trial subjects, listening more than speaking, and offering resources without asking for forgiveness in return. I had watched them change in small ways. Mason stopped treating silence like a management strategy. Miles stopped hiding serious thoughts behind jokes. I was changing too. My designation no longer felt like a secret someone else owned. My doctor had explained that the connection between the three of us was stable but incomplete. It could fade with distance, deepen through trust, or remain exactly where it was. For once, nobody handed me a decision disguised as medical advice. I stepped into the renovated lobby and immediately saw the elevator. The same silver doors. The same mirrored interior beyond them. My feet stopped. Apparently, personal growth had limits when confronted by polished steel. The doors opened, and Mason and Miles stood inside. Mason wore charcoal instead of black. Miles held 3 coffees and looked far too pleased with himself. I bought options, he said. One has oat milk, one has regular milk, and one is probably caramel pretending to be coffee. You remembered my order? I asked. I remembered all 4 versions you claimed were your usual. Mason glanced at the elevator controls. We can take the stairs. 52 floors. Of course he would offer that without blinking. That might interfere with my plan to arrive before retirement. The doors began to close. Miles reached out and held them, but he did not step toward me. Mason stayed where he was. Neither called my name. Neither told me I was safe. They let me decide whether I believed it. Through the bond, I felt their patience, their hope, and a careful kind of fear. Not fear that I would reject them. Fear that they might accidentally pressure me to stay. I stepped across the threshold. The doors remained open behind me. Ground rule, I said. No. Executive commands outside official meetings. Mason nodded. Agreed. No making decisions for me because you think they are protective. Miles lifted one hand. Also agreed. And no using this bond as an excuse to avoid actual conversations. Mason looked mildly wounded. Miles looked delighted. That rule is mostly for him, Miles said. It is for both of you. I took the caramel coffee, then stood between them as the doors closed. Nothing dramatic happened. No alarm. No sudden heat. No hidden voice through the speaker. The elevator simply began to rise. Mason's hand rested at his side, close but not reaching. Miles watched the floor numbers with exaggerated innocence. I looked at one brother, then the other, and made one more choice that belonged entirely to me. I took Mason's hand first. His fingers closed around mine with careful warmth. Then I reached for Miles. The bond settled through us, quiet and steady, not a command and not a trap. Just recognition. The first time those doors closed, I believed I had lost control of my life. This time, as the city fell away beneath us and 2 familiar scents softened the air, I understood the difference between being trapped and choosing to remain. The elevator carried us upward, and for the first time, I was not afraid of where it might stop.